Hi guys, Learn to Business here with another instalment of our top 10 tips for starting or growing your business. In this video we'll be introducing you to the differences between operating your business as a sole trader, a partnership and a company. There's quite a lot of content in this video so you might want to pop the kettle on, but don't worry, we'll be delving into our prop box to keep things a little bit more interesting. And for the avoidance of doubt, anything that we say in this video shouldn't be taken as advice. What we're looking to do here instead is just to give you a better understanding of the differences between the different types of business structure to allow for a more informed conversation with your accountant. And there's a number of financial, legal and tax obligations that you have as a business owner that change depending on how you set your business up. And you'll be thrilled to hear that we'll be covering each of those in a separate video. The place to start here has to be who you're going into business with. Are you going to go in lone wolf and therefore deciding between a sole trader or a company? Or are you teaming it with others and therefore choosing between a partnership and a company?
A sole trader is somebody who is self-employed and runs their business as an individual. And here we have Brian, and Brian and his business are essentially the same thing. We'll come back to Brian shortly. And the key positives for operating as a sole trader are really simplicity and speed. There's far less admin than there is for companies, and Harry's going to touch on those points a little bit later. You'll need to register your business and as being self-employed with HMRC, aka the taxman, and we'd also recommend that you set up a separate bank account as well to separate out your personal expenses from the income and expenses from your business, but then you're away. Now, a key disadvantage that sole traders and ordinary partnerships have is unlimited liability. And what that means is, put simply, you are responsible as the business owner if things go wrong and the business has debts that it can't settle. And for Brian, that would mean that it wouldn't be sunshine and rainbows anymore. He may need to sell his house, car or other possessions to pay off the debts of the business. And from a tax perspective, Brian will pay income tax on any profits that the business makes. Now you'll have to contain your excitement, I'm afraid, because we're going to cover tax in a lot more detail in another video. But at the time of filming, for tax year 2021, here are the income tax rates, bands and allowances. Brian will also need to pay Class 2 and 4 national insurance on his profits, and again at the time of filming, here are the thresholds and rates on which they apply. So Brian's going to need to file a tax return and submit his trading accounts which support the numbers in his tax return. Nobody's going to be able to see the accounts apart from Brian and HMRC, and this is a little bit different compared to companies, and Harry's going to cover that later. A partnership works in a similar way to a sole trader, except your business partners. Here, Brian is going into business with Tina. Each will be a partner, and we would recommend that a partnership agreement is drawn up between Brian and Tina. This will set out, for example, who's responsible for what and what the agreed profit split between the partners will be. This doesn't have to be 50-50, for example, it can be whatever you decide. The partners will then be taxed on that profit personally. So here, let's say that the agreement was 50-50 between Brian and Tina, and the partnership makes a profit of 100. Brian's trading income that would be subject to income tax will be 50, and so would Tina's. That would then be taxed in the same way in rates as if they were a sole trader, which we covered earlier. Whilst partnerships do have the benefits of sharing the unlimited liability risk that we covered earlier, it also introduces the complexity that it's not just you making the decisions anymore. There could therefore be disagreements that you need to sort out. And by the way guys, if you are enjoying this video, please like and subscribe, it will really help us. Thank you.
So finally, let's discuss exactly what a company is. A company is a separate legal entity. So that means that Brian and his business are no longer the same thing. A company has its own tax and legal identity. A company is owned by its shareholders and managed by its directors. Here, we'll assume that Brian is the sole shareholder and director of his company, Brian Munich Limited. We'll discuss joint ventures and how to fund your business in a later video. And one of the main advantages of operating as a company is that it provides you with limited liability. And that means that if things were to go wrong for Brian this time, then what he could lose is broadly restricted to the amount of money he put into his business. And that means that his weird little rainbow house is probably safe. From a tax perspective, a company will pay corporation tax on its profits. At the time of filming, the rate of corporation tax is a flat 19%. But unlike income tax, there are no personal allowance equivalents. A company will therefore start paying corporate tax on its first £1 of profit. The extra complication of operating as a company is how Brian will extract cash from his business. There are generally 3 options for this. 1, repaying any loans and interest that Brian may have put into the business. 2, paying himself a salary. And 3, paying himself a dividend. We don't have time here to go through the details of each of these options, But Brian will be subject to income tax on anything he receives, in line with the rates that Lee mentioned earlier, plus dividends. So in this way, there's effectively 2 layers of tax that you need to consider if you're going to operate your business through a company. First of all, there's corporation tax at a company level, and second of all, there's income tax that Brian will need to pay on anything that he takes out of the business. But this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end up paying more tax overall, as that's going to be completely dependent on your own personal circumstances. And of course, you don't necessarily have to take everything out of your business. You can keep it in there and reinvest it in order to grow your business, and therefore only pay corporation tax. For companies, there's obviously a lot more to consider in terms of what you need to prepare and file on an annual basis, including your financial statements and annual reports, which anyone can view online, and then your corporate and personal tax returns. But we'll cover each of these things in a lot more detail in one of our future videos. This probably all sounds like a little bit of a faff, but there are some massive benefits to operating as a company. So let's just run through a few of those now. And as we've already said, a company provides you with limited liability, which therefore drastically reduces the risk to your life beyond the bounds of your business if things were to go wrong. As you own the business through shares, this gives you a lot of flexibility in things such as getting investors on board or selling your business. A lot of people choose to operate through a company due to the professional feel that this can give to the market, and this is on the expectation that people are more comfortable dealing with an established company rather than an individual.
Thank you very much for watching. We do hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions or comments, then just pop them below. And if you want to find out more information about Learn to Business and to subscribe for our course, please visit learntobusiness.co.uk.